Hi there, I'm Scott Lowe with ActualTech Media, and I am here today at Datrium headquarters, where I'm joined by Sazzala Reddy, who is the CTO and the co-founder of the company. Sazzala, thank you for having us here today.
Thanks a lot, Scott, for coming over.
So Datrium is really doing some pretty cool stuff in the market, and you've been talking to customers about some of the things that they need to see happen in their data center environments. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen and where Datrium is going to, based on the customer feedback they get?
Yeah, good question. So, having been to a lot of customers in the recent past, what we are finding is that there are 3-4 different problems they can explain to us. One of them is that in the existing data center, they have all these different pieces of the silos they've put together, like for primary storage, for servers, for SAN, for backup, and then they replicate the whole thing into a DR site, the licensing, the complexity of all these pieces you have to learn, the training. It's just too much for them. And then on the other side, there is the cloud, which people are looking at. I mean, every CIO is considering it. Everybody wants to talk about it, and the competition is starting there. So how do you think of that as a growing puzzle for you? And that's the second problem. So then there's the silos in your data center, in your on-prem. There is silos across your data centers, and there's silos across the clouds. So these are the challenges a lot of people face. There is no one way to look at your journey. How is the journey for your data lifecycle through all these pieces? So people are struggling with that, and it's becoming complex.
One of the things that's been interesting about Datrium is the way you've architected your solution. If you look at some of the, I don't want to call it traditional, but traditional, I don't want to even say hyperconverged, but I will. It's very linear. You've got an architecture that's much more granular, and with some of the newer things you've done, like adding support for KVM and adding support bare metal and CentOS, you're helping people grow the way they need to grow without adding more silos.
That's right. So silos are a problem. So hyperconverged actually is a useful thing in the world. It has done something useful things. But hyperconverged ultimately is a hardware convergence. It's trying to converge primary and compute. So basically, but people want more than that. People want data convergence. Like, how do I make my life cycle of my data assets be flowing smoothly and be manageable in one place? And if you go to the cloud, that's how it is, right? So why isn't it like that in your on-prem also?
Agreed, and that's I think that's a powerful story, and it's one of the, I think that when I look at Datrium's architecture, it's one of the things I love about it is the way you support customers and workloads much differently than a lot of other people do. One of the challenges of cloud, though, is this idea that people are going to start adopting clouds in the same way that they've done other infrastructures. So they'll go, here for this, they'll go here for this, and pretty soon we have this multi-cloud mess. How is Datrium helping customers with their multi-cloud strategies?
Right. So firstly, we are doing step one is that we are helping the journey into the cloud with our new release of the cloud backup is step one. And then pretty soon we're going to announce a way to, which Andre talked about briefly, was that we're going to allow you to move your workload with a single click, move it from your on-prem to one cloud, right? And along with VMware, so it's going to be a partner for that. So that's one thing allowing. One of the other problems I hear from customers is that they don't want to be tied to one cloud because they're afraid of vendor lock-in, the cloud lock-in. So what VMware did for storage was that they made storage vMotion possible so that you don't have the storage lock-in. One click, you can move all your workload to some other. You bought today some Nimble, and tomorrow you can move to something else. So they made that possible. What people are looking for the same experience to be happening in the cloud, that cloud vMotion. Click a button, I want to move away from Amazon. For whatever reason, it could be like because Amazon is entering your business. Today, they're in every business.
Right.
So that's the danger for
a
competitor. And then also the SLAs are different. If you go to Google, has different properties, Azure has different properties. So people want to have that. They want to commoditize the cloud. Giving too much power to the vendor, like any vendor, including us, is that I think you lose your control over your metrics. And different clouds are evolving differently. Some may be good, some may be bad for different cases. So people want that one click, just move my workload anywhere. So we don't want to be that one cloud, one OS kind of company. We want to be any hypervisor, any cloud kind of company because we want to give everybody a choice because you cannot build your own cloud. It's a lot of, there's so many different ways of doing this. It's already there. Why build that? Why don't we give people a way to commoditize the cloud and think of it as infrastructure?
Absolutely.
Just make it. Today, do you know who gives you power for you, electricity?
I don't really care.
Exactly.
As long as the things turn on, it doesn't matter.
That's right. So we're moving to that model where cloud computing is here, but let's make it a commodity and let's use it that way. And so basically there are a lot of things we have done to make that possible.
One of the challenges I think people have had is this idea of hybrid cloud as well. And what I mean by that is we've seen people go all in on Amazon or go all in on on public cloud, and then realize they have to ratchet it back. And it sounds like you're helping enable a multi-cloud world with a hybrid component so that they have the best of both worlds. They get on-premises what needs to be on-premises, or they have the ability to come back on-premises quickly if they need to, or they can choose whatever cloud they want and run in multiple places. It sounds like that's the kind of strategy you're enabling.
That's right. So to do that well, you need to combine the primary and the backup kind of thing. You need to combine the entire life cycle of data. Otherwise, you have, again, back to the same problem that you have a backup vendor who does this, or the primary vendor doesn't do that. So if you move your data around, then you're kind of bringing it all back together. You lost your history of your data. You lost provenance for your data.
Right.
So what we built in is provenance into the system, like building a global ledger. Like, we have some blockchain-like features in our system, so we can keep track of the overall, like, what changed, who changed it, where, and we have global dedupe, which is kind of unique. Not many people have this. Is that if you have data to move a petabyte of data from here to there, it has gravity.
Time.
It has gravity. So how do you defeat gravity? What's the anti-gravity device you can come imagine?
Reduction. Right.
How do you defeat light speed?
Right.
By only having global dedupe, which works inline, that's the only way to defeat light speed and make this work. So that's why I think to do a foundation where you can move your workload anywhere you want has to be built on a solid foundation like this. Not a fancy UI. Fancy UI is good, but if you don't have the bottom chops, and if you don't have all the pieces working together, and a way to organize and manage it all together, I think you're going to be in a little bit of a mess.
So on the disaster recovery piece, do they have to go to the public cloud, or could they go to another remote on-premises?
Yeah, you can go to remote on-premise. This is fine. But
if they don't want to go
actually, so what we found is that a lot of customers are the first step they want to solve. The first simple cloud experience they want is that all of them have a second DR site. It is doing nothing other than just sitting there, waiting for one day to be useful.
Right.
But in the meantime, they're paying the licensing fees, they're paying all these box fees, they're paying all the management fees over it. So it's of no use. So if you can get rid of that, it's a clear-cut cost savings. If you can do backup to the cloud, which is an efficient way like we do, you only then, if you have a DR, if you click a button, you can enable to run your applications on the cloud, and you only pay for the 2 weeks you have a disaster recovery for running your VM. It's expensive a little bit, but for the 2 weeks, it's reasonable. Right. So then that's the experience a lot of people are desiring today. Right now, even without thinking of any cloud strategy, even if they're just like a simple data center, that's a very valuable thing to do. Cut down second data center management, money, everything. Very clear-cut savings.
And one of the advantages there as well is if there's an event, oftentimes insurance will end up covering those costs anyway, whereas they won't cover the cost of a secondary data center.
That's true. But to make this work, well, you need primary, you need backup, all these pieces to work. Otherwise, you're still back to the old way of doing things, and it's still expensive.
Yep.
If you're going to do DR to the cloud, for 2 weeks, you're going to bring it back. Imagine you moved a petabyte of data to the cloud, and you're doing the DR, and you're done with the DR. Your onsite is back. You put out all the fires, it's back online. And if you click a button, you want to move back to your on-prem. If you're going to move petabyte back, that's crazy.
It's going to cost.
But it only changed one terabyte.
Right.
In these 2 weeks. So because you've had global dedupe, you can only move back 1 terabyte, which is fast and cost-effective, and you're back online. Otherwise, you're just basically wasting like days and weeks to just get it back.
Yeah, data transfer is the weak link in some of these things, and when you can reduce data pretty dramatically, it can be pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that overview.
Thanks a lot, Scott.
And thank you to our audience for watching this Roadcast video.